And welcome to the My Tennis Coaching podcast. I'm your host and founder over at mytenniscoaching.com, Steve Whelan, and this is a video podcast. I've decided to film it and stream it both on YouTube, Facebook, and Spotify. It just sort of made no sense recording a audio only podcast just for Spotify when I can then repurpose it and push it out to more people on different platforms. So going forwards, the majority of the podcasts will be filmed, and I'm planning on releasing them every Tuesday at 6 p.m. New York time. So there'll be two vlogs or two video posts a week, one on a Tuesday, which will be 6 p.m. New York time, and then there'll be a Friday 10 a.m. London time, just because I've got a big following in America. I think it'd be quite good to stream at their peak time. And then obviously the UK coaches who generally are not working at 10 o'clock in the afternoon, generally, that they'll have a sort of a stream on a Friday as well. So here we go. So in today's podcast, we're going to discuss why you should stop giving the players the answer. So the majority of tennis coaches, the majority of tennis lessons involves a player coming to you for a lesson, for some advice. And as the coach, you give them all the answers, all the solutions. You set up the practice, you feed them the balls, you see where they go wrong, and then you give them the answer. You tell them how to perform it more efficiently, more effectively, maybe what to do tactically, maybe how to improve physically, maybe how to improve mentally. But the coach generally gives the players the answer. And that's, I would say, 90% of the tennis coaching that I see across the world, not just in the UK, but when you look at stuff on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, it's all just giving the answers. And a lot of the social media posts are how to hit the perfect backhand, how to hit the perfect forehand, how to perform this shot or this tactic more efficiently and effectively. But what we have to understand is that's probably not the best idea. And the way I sort of frame this and the way I'll present this to you is when you're doing your high school or your secondary school exams, so GCSEs here in the UK, or even further education, degree, diploma, whatever level it may be. Imagine if the school or the college or the university gave you the answers. So before you sit down for the exam, they gave you the answers and said, okay, these are the answers that you're going to get for the questions that you might get, because there's no guarantee, but here's the answers. So you'll probably do well in the exam because you've already got the answers. But the level of learning is quite shallow because you'll have an understanding, but you won't actually fully understand the reasons why. And you won't understand the real deep learning or the deep knowledge because you've just been given the answer. So you have a vague idea, but you actually won't know the deep level learning or knowledge. Whereas if you actually go away and you research it yourself and you try stuff out and you do, let's say it's a maths equation, you do the maths equation and you do it multiple times and make lots of mistakes, but then you figure it out. And then you figure out the process of how to do it. And then when it comes to trying that out again, you've got a deeper level of understanding of how to solve the problem because you've actually worked it out yourself and you found your way of actually achieving the correct answer or getting the outcome. So think about it in a tennis context. So as a tennis coach, you give the player the answers. You give the player the solutions. So when they go into a match, again, they've got a baseline understanding of what they should be doing. But what happens if different questions get thrown up from a tennis point of view? What happens if the player doesn't hit the ball in that exact right space that the coach has been drilling over the last couple of weeks? Has the player got the deeper level of understanding and learning to adapt and change? The answer is probably no. So therefore, they'll make more mistakes. They'll struggle more. And you see it a lot in match play. When a opponents is difficult to play against, and they maybe change game styles, or they may throw something different in front of your player, and your player just doesn't know how to react. They just don't know how to adapt and change. And I seen this the other week when we were doing county training, and we set the task of, okay, if you get into the net and win the point, you get a bonus point. You get, I think it was 3 points rather than 1 point in a tiebreak. And it was interesting because a couple of players tried it, but only once or twice. The majority didn't try and get forwards because they just weren't trained that way. So they didn't quite understand why or how to actually perform the task. So they weren't very adaptable. So just imagine in a match, if you notice that if you get into the net and you're winning the points, but you don't recognize that's an option, and you just stay at the back, there's a good chance you're going to lose the match. And again, for me, it goes back to the overcoaching. We're just giving the solutions. Now, why do coaches do it? And we'll look at some of the reasons in a minute of sort of the benefits of not giving the answers. And we'll talk about sort of how we can set the practice up where we don't give them the answers. But why do coaches do it? And for me, it's peer pressure. It's peer pressure from a couple of different sources. First of all, the peer pressure from the coach themselves, because the coach themselves will see themselves as the expert. I've done this a lot longer than you have as the player, generally. I've played to a higher level than the player, generally. So therefore, I know what it takes. So there's a lot of expectation from the coach on themselves of, okay, I'm the authority figure here. So therefore, there's an expectation from the player that I need to know what I'm talking about. I'm the coach, they're the player. I have to give them the answers and the solutions. There's an expectation from the parents as well, that the coach may feel that, well, the parents are paying me cold hard cash. I have to justify that $50 or that £50 because someone's paying me for my expertise. So I have to give the solutions. I have to give my wisdom, my experience, my knowledge. That's my role as a coach, is to give the answers. And I think that's why we do it. That's why I've done it in the past, because people come to me for lessons. People come to me for ideas and wisdom. Coaches come to me for ideas and wisdom about coaching. And in the past, I've just given the answers. But what we have to understand is tennis is it's not very linear. We can say, well, if this happens and that's the best option, do that. One, that might never happen. And the scenario or the environment might not be the exact same. There'll always be a slight difference and a slight variance. Now, of course, we've got high percentage shots. So we know if we get a deep ball into the corner, then going down the line is not a great idea. We know that hitting the ball back cross court is a much better idea. So how we frame that to the players is we probably just tell them. And there's another pressure there as well, time. I said a lot of time players come to us for an hour. So we feel the time pressure. And more often than not with coaches, when we discuss this, they say, yeah, but I've only got an hour. It's just quicker for me to tell them. It's just quicker for me to get in, just tell them what to do, because then that just saves time. If I've got this whole exploring element and let them work it out themselves, it could take a full hour. They may not even get it, which again, I fully understand. But we'll look at the reasons why now in a few minutes. And I think I've got 5 reasons why that you shouldn't give them the answer, and why it's more beneficial to let them try it out. And if you follow me on social media at My Tennis Coaching, Facebook and Instagram, you'll notice that I'm always talking about letting players make mistakes, because I think coaching's now become a quick fix industry. It's not a long-term player development industry no more. It's quick fixes. A coach sees a mistake, they jump in, try and fix it. They'll see a mistake, they'll jump in and try and fix it. Again, part of it is the perception of what coaching is. People believe that's what coaches do. Both coaches believe that, and parents and players believe that as well. But you have to always think about the match court. On a match court, you haven't got a coach with you generally. The coach isn't there courtside. The coach isn't there talking you through and guiding you through a game like you do have in other sports. But even in other sports, it's quite interesting, because like if you watch football or soccer, I know from when I played football, I didn't listen to the coach at the sideline. The coach might bark out instructions, but I didn't really listen to them because I was just so engrossed in the game. And I see that a lot when I do county cup, when I'm allowed on court at change of ends. How much information the player's taking in is minimal. They're generally just in the zone, and they're generally trying to work stuff up. They're trying to work stuff out themselves. So a lot of the conversations I have at change of ends, it's more about the player telling me how they're feeling and what their plan is. It's less about me telling them because it's quite minimal. That's a little bit different scenario because sometimes if I do see something, there is a time pressure on me there, so I probably am going to be a bit more explicit. But in a training environment, it's going to be more of a implicit learning. So they're the sort of reasons why. I've just got a few notes down on my phone, so apologies if I do look down. If you're watching this on the camera, if you're on Spotify, you can't see me, which is great. But we have to understand that tennis is a game of problems. It's a game of a dynamic, forever evolving situation. So when you play a match, it's always changing. Your opponent will change. You will change. And people say, well, how can I change during the course of a match? Well, you'll change based on the environment. If you're winning compared to when you're losing, you'll feel and play differently. You'll feel differently in the first set of a match than you will the third. Fatigue will set in. So both mentally and physically, you're gonna go through lots of changes in that match. You're also going to go through lots of changes based on the score. And we know that tennis is an absolute roller coaster of emotion with the score. You're winning, you're losing. You win a few points in a row, you lose a few points in a row. You can win a couple of games in a row, and then all of a sudden you lose a few games in a row. So it's a constant, ever evolving dynamic space. So it's a constant evolving solution. You may think you have so many answers, and then something changes, and then you may have to adjust and adapt. And by giving players, and I see it this week on Instagram, patterns of play, it's so restrictive. And in the post that I sort of got engaged with, they were saying, well, I just told the player, if the ball lands here, you hit there. If the ball lands here, you hit there. I take away the decisions from the player. And the point I was trying to make in my comments, respectfully, was, well, I understand that you're taking away some of the decisions and you're making it a bit simpler, but you've taken away all the decision. So therefore, how can a player then adapt on the fly if those things don't quite work out? So when they get into a match, they'll try it out and then it won't work. And then they haven't got any other skills. They haven't got the ability to adapt and change based on their previous experience, because you've just given them a blueprint. And if they follow that blueprint and it doesn't work, what then? How are they going to change it? And coaches might feel like, yeah, but I'll give them plan B, plan C. But you need, again, plans are dangerous, because I think you can go in with a plan. If it doesn't work, then it's going to be difficult. And I've made that mistake with players in the past where I've said, okay, in this situation, if the ball lands short, let's really attack the ball down the line. Pardon me. And then the player does it and loses, and they look at me and go, well, you told me that would work. There's no guarantees. There's no guarantees it's going to work. And then what happens? The player stops doing it because it didn't work that one time. And you'll see that a lot with adults, especially in doubles coaching, which I've noticed recently. Like, I've been doing lots of work on positioning and trying to win the point more at the net. And the adults will miss a volley and they go, yeah, I'm not trying that again. And it's that fallback of, I'll just go back to how I normally play, even though that's not very effective either. But it's trying to then solve the problems. So by not telling them, by designing the practice where they've got to work it out themselves, you're giving them that problem solving ability. And I've talked about this a lot recently, especially with coaches on court and with players and parents. The art of problem solving is disappearing from society, because we're just so used to now given the answers. Like 20 odd years ago, if I didn't know something, you'd have to walk to a library, research it, and look through books and books and books, absorb lots of other knowledge in and around the subject, and then find the answer. Now you just go onto Google and you type in a couple of things and you're given generally the answer. So our players that we're working with at the minute are just used to be given the answers. Parenting, if you think about parenting now, a lot of parenting is the parents just give the kids the answers because they just don't want the hassle. They will literally just tell people the kids the answer because they don't want to be the hassle of actually going through the whole process of the learning process. So the answers are just readily given to them. And I had it late last year or early this year with a player where she turned around and said to me, "But your job's to tell me what to do." I'm like, it's not. My job is to give you problems, not solutions. My job's to give you the problem. Your job's then to find the solution. But because she was so used to her previous coach just telling and telling and telling, she didn't like my way of coaching because I didn't give her the answers. And it didn't work out between us. And I'm not saying that's her fault. I'm not saying that's my fault. But the clash was there because she was so used to being told what to do and how to do it. And when she then worked with me, then she couldn't actually transfer. She just couldn't adapt. She couldn't change. And then she wondered why she wasn't that effective in certain matches where it was a lot closer and a lot tighter, or matches where she played against a higher experienced player, because she couldn't solve the problem, because she just had these strengths that she played with and she just stuck to those strengths. And when they worked, they worked. But when they didn't work, she couldn't solve the problem. She couldn't really work it out. So as a coach, if we use the short ball, if we use a short ball example, so let's say work on a short ball attack. Previously, old me, traditional coaching, Steve, would tell the player to, okay, we're going to approach down the line. We're going to approach down the line because it's going to the back end, you reduce the angle. And I'll tell them how to do it. Approach down the line has to be deep, has to be quite quick, has to really take time and space away from the baseline. It may even keep it low, so they've got to hit up. So I'd give them the whole thing, where to hit it, how to hit it, what it looks like, the whole shebang. I'll give them the whole answer. What do I do now in 2023 as I'm recording this podcast? I just give them the situation. Okay, so today we're going to work on a short ball. I want you to come forwards and try and win the point at the net. I'll give you the short ball. We're going to play the point out. You should win the point because I'm giving you that short ball. It's a bit like football. You've got an opportunity to apply pressure, to attack, to be offensive, whatever way you want to put it. Can you win the point? And that's all I'll tell the player. And then the player's got to solve that problem out themselves. Because if they go cross court and I nail it down the line, because by going cross court opens up the angle, and they keep doing that, at some point they're going to go, that's not working. And if they don't get it, that's when I start coaching. But I don't tell them, don't go cross court. I say, well, you've gone 10 times into my forehand cross court and I've passed you down the line 8 times out of 10. I've missed 2 because I'm not perfect. But I've won 8 and you've lost 8 by going into that space. Do you think that's the most efficient and effective place to go? And then we'll have a little conversation around it. And they'll probably work out, yeah, it's probably not the best place. However, you've gone down the line to my backhand and you've won 5 out of 10. So that's better. So you've won more going down the line. So why do you think that's more effective? And they'll have a little think about it. And again, you've got to use quite clever questioning because you don't want to give the answers away if you're questioning, but hopefully they'll come with, oh, it's the backhand that's not strong. Or by going down a line as well, I'm forcing you either back across me or trying to go past me down the line. So I'm almost forcing you hitting the ball in and around me at the net. Okay, great. But only 5 we've won so far. Can you win more than 5 out of 10 now? And then we'll start to look at, okay, well, are they hitting the ball deep enough? Are they hitting the ball low enough? Or are they putting me under enough pressure? And then we'll work it out that way. But I'm letting the player work out themselves. And the downsides to this, which we've talked about before, either on the podcast or the live streams on Facebook and YouTube on a Friday, the downside of that, it takes time. It takes time. It takes a long time. It takes a load of mistakes. And it looks really messy. And it looks sometimes bad to parents because it looks like the player is just missing all the time. And like I mentioned before, we're in this society now where we want quick fixes. We want quick fixes. We want success today. There's a reason why we all sign up for Amazon Prime, because we want it tomorrow or even the same day. We don't even want to wait 2 days. We don't want to wait 2 days. Why wait 2 days when we have it now? I want answers now. And again, it was an interesting conversation this week with a coach via Instagram DM, because they were saying, well, parents, I'm trying your approach, your ecological dynamics, your constraint-led approach, but some parents are getting fed up because they're not seeing progress quick enough, and then just going to the other coach down the road who's a bit more explicit and they're seeing quick results. And I understand that pressure, but what you have to do as a coach is then you have to have that conversation with the parent and back it up and say, well, this is not just tennis skill, by the way, this is life skills. Like in life, we don't just get £1 million tomorrow unless we're lucky and do the lottery. Like if you want £1 million, it takes a long time to get there. It takes a long time. Something worth having doesn't come easy. That's a quote that I've sort of always lived my life by. Something worth having doesn't come easy. You gotta work at it. Can't just be given the keys to the castle. You've got to work. And tennis is the same. If you want quick fixes, then fine, go to the coach down the road. But my second point for the positives of not giving them the answers is it's a deeper level of learning. It's a deeper level of understanding. Goes back to what I said at the start of the podcast. If I go out there and I research my exam, I'm going to have not only a better understanding of the exam, but a broader knowledge of the subject as well. And the same with tennis. If I spend more time really practicing that short ball, and I'm trying short balls cross court, I'm trying short ball angles, I'm trying slice, I'm trying topspin, I'm trying to find the most effective way, not only am I developing it in theory that one down the line, but I'm developing lots of different skills in and around it. So the broader learning is being done. The downside is it looks messy, it's chaotic, and there's loads of mistakes, and it takes time. Or you could go down to the coach down the road who's basket feeding, isolating, and okay, we're going to hit the ball down the line. I'm going to feed you this ball 150 times and you're going to hit it down the line. Yes, they're going to get that skill quicker. They're going to understand that skill. And it's great if they get that ball in a match and they probably hit that one shot. But you can't have that skill, or sorry, that skill is not transferable into a more open, dynamic situation. So it goes back to what I said at the start. What happens if that doesn't work? You may have to go cross court in behind. You may have to find an angle. You may have to hit the ball lower. You may have to kick the ball up higher into the backhand. You may have to hit lots of different types of approaches, not just that one approach that the coach has taught you. So there's a deeper level and there's a broader level of development going on there. It also encourages creativity and adaptability, because they're going to have to be creative of how they do it. And it's not going to be a one-size-fits-all approach, because how I approach will be different to you. On my backhand, I always approach with slice because that's what I find effective. But if you're approaching on your backhand, you may go two-handed, you may go single-handed. It really helps develop that individual aspect of the player as well, because it's a challenge. And I think sometimes we fail to understand that kids like challenges. There's a reason why the kids play games like Minecraft and Roblox, because it's a degree of challenge, but also it's a opportunity to express themselves. If you look at Roblox and Minecraft, what do they have in common? They're open sandboxes of creativity. They can play it any way they want. But yet when they come to our tennis coaching, we tell them how to play and we restrict them. It's all very linear. So we're almost going against what the kids enjoy. Let them play around with it. Some of them may start drop shotting. Some of them may be quite creative of how they come in and approach. And I'm just using the approach as an example that we can sort of just pull through as we have this conversation. But let them explore. Let them try it out. Let them try different spins, different grips. Again, we're looking at a broader range of skill development here. We're not just trying to develop that one single thing. So by giving them the opportunity to explore and not giving them the answers, we're actually feeding their creativity, but their problem solving as well. The fourth point that I'd like to make is it builds resilience. Because when the player starts trying to explore, they make loads of mistakes. When we first learn a new skill, we make loads of mistakes because the body's trying to work out the solution. We're trying to work out the solution. We're trying to solve the problem. And we can only do that by making mistakes and adapting. And it goes back to a live I did a few weeks ago about negativity in tennis and why players get so negative. It's generally because of the culture we create. Make a mistake, we get in and fix it. Make a mistake, we get in and fix it. Therefore, if we make mistakes, we have to fix it. We have to fix it now. Goes back to what we said before about that I have to fix it, I've got to fix it now mentality. We make mistakes every day in life, and it builds resilience. Again, I think sometimes we create cultures and environments on a tennis court where it's not okay to make mistakes. And you have to look at the top game. Djokovic, I used this one before, 52% of points won in his career. He misses and loses a lot of points. So with tennis players, we have to allow them to make mistakes. And guess what? If you keep missing and keep making mistakes, but then you start to get better, and all of a sudden you get it and you find the solution. You're building natural resistance or resilience in the player. And we talk about resilience all the time, but I think sometimes we talk about it in the wrong context. We talk about how to stay calm when we make mistakes, and when we're losing, how not to get upset. To me, resilience is you just keep going. No matter how many mistakes you make, you just keep going. Goes back to the adults before when you missed that volley in doubles and you don't want to do it again. That's not resilience. Resilience is keep putting yourself under pressure. And what I say to the adults all the time is just you need to win 6 out of 10. So give yourself the space of missing 4. First serve percentage, get 6 in, give yourself the space of missing 4. Because you can't get 100%. If you're serving efficiently and effectively, you can't get 100%. No one can. No one in the history of the game, I don't believe, has served at their full ability and got 100% first serves in the match. Maybe wrong, but I think it's very doubtful. So we're developing that natural resilience as well. And last but not least, it's just one that I've mentioned before. It's all individual. So the player finds their own way of doing it. And if I have 2 lessons back to back, even though we might work on the short ball approach, they should be different. Even though the theme and the situation's the same, how the player finds a solution and how the practice and how the lesson goes should be different. And it really annoys me when I see coaches do the same lesson over and over again. They'll have 8 sessions on the Saturday next to me, and they'll work on the forehand for 8 sessions, and the teaching points and everything's the same, despite the players being different ages and different stages and different sizes and different experiences between them. So by not giving them the answers and letting them work out themselves, you're developing the player in front of you. It's individual, and that makes it unique to them as well. So there we go. So that's my thoughts and why I've stopped giving players the answers. And I've said this before a million times. I've been that traditional coach. I've gone there with the answers, and I've delivered thousands of lessons where I've told them what to do, when to do, and how to do it. And only now, when I'm in this journey of the ecological dynamics approach, the constraint-led approach to coaching, where I don't give the answers. And I mentioned before, I see my job now at providing problems, not providing solutions. And the player has to find the solution. And for the reasons that I've talked about in this podcast, I think players then will become better problem solvers. They'll be more creative. They'll be more resilient. They'll have more respect for you because you're treating them as an individual. And they then will have ownership and accountability of their own game. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If you're watching live or if you're watching the video version on YouTube, do me a huge favor, please hit that subscribe and just leave a comment down below. It really helps the algorithm. If you're listening on Spotify, you're not missing too much. Maybe I've not got face for video podcasting, so maybe it's a better experience on Spotify. Who knows? If you're on Spotify, do me a huge favor. Please leave a review, a 5-star review. We much appreciate it. It really helps get this show out to more coaches. And feel free to leave a question or comment below as well. Until next time, I will be live on Friday with Greg Hill from Mini Tennis Insight. So we're doing a joint conversation, webinar, podcast, whatever you want to call it. It's only going to stream on Facebook and YouTube exclusively. That's 10 a.m. on Friday, London time. So please join me. I'll be back next Tuesday, 6 p.m. New York time with another podcast as well. Until then,